Okay, welcome to PTA training for your executive board. And we are very glad that you're here with us today. You're going to learn about the responsibilities of serving as a board member and some of the legal requirements that you need to know. And we're also going to you're going to learn about policies and procedures that PTA has for operating. If you have questions along the way, feel free to unmute, let me know, and ask the question. Okay, PTA is a multi-level organization. We have the national PTA. Let me move this out of the way. We have the California State PTA. And in fact, there was a state PTA in all of our states in the country. And then under the state PTA, it's divided up into geographical areas called PTA districts. You are part of 3rd District PTA. And then under the district, there's the option, districts have the option of having councils, which are organized around a large school district or a city or region where there are some common interests, maybe working with the same school board, things like that. 3rd District used to have councils, but one of the important things is you have to find leadership for councils, and we had some difficulty with that. So we've gone from a number of years ago to 6 councils down to no councils at the moment. So units, you are a unit PTA, that's at each of our schools. And so you are considered an out of council unit directly working with 3rd District PTA. You're never alone with PTA. With PTA, you have a safety net because there's always, from all the different levels of PTA, there's support, training, and tools for helping you to run and operate your PTA. So that's a wonderful benefit of being a PTA. Now, to give you an idea, 3rd District covers 8 counties, and you can see on your screen the counties: Colusa, El Dorado, Nevada, Placer, Sacramento, Sutter, Yolo, and Yuba. So you can see we're spread out quite a bit. Our office is headquartered here in Sacramento County, actually in the Sacramento area. So it's pretty convenient. It's fairly convenient for you. Now, here for your information is our 3rd District Executive Board, because we're all here to help you. You might want to take a screenshot of this just so you have the information. Tom is here with me tonight, but there are lots of other people available to help you. So you can contact any of us, not a problem.
I have a quick question. Is
Yes.
there a possibility you can actually send this PowerPoint out after?
What we were talking about, Tom and I were talking about, is that we're going to post it on our 3rd District website. I don't know how fast you'll get it. It might be 2 or 3 days. Okay. And then you can access it that way.
Perfect. Thank you.
Plus some of the forms and samples that we're going to talk about. Hopefully he can post those there too, so you can actually see them and not just hear about them tonight. Okay? Okay, what is 3rd District's role? It's to provide training and tools for unit leaders. Part of that is the training we're providing tonight. We also provide training typically in August or September and in May after new PTAs elect new officers and things. So we're always available to help with training. We provide a mentor to each unit. And Cheryl Longsworth is the mentor assigned to your PTA. You've all met her. She helped organize your PTA. But right now, while she is not well, you can feel free to contact me or contact Tom for any questions or help that you might want. 3rd District also coordinates and assists with the reflections participation. So that's something you might want to consider for next year. It's an arts program that involves students, and we work with all of the school PTAs in our district to participate in that if they choose to. We provide a calendar with deadlines for submitting payments, deadlines for when paperwork is due, and deadlines for tax filings, because you are required to file with the IRS, with the State Franchise Tax Board, and with the Attorney General's Office Registry of Charitable Trusts. And we'll talk a little more about that. And then we also assist units with questions or helping you resolve whatever kind of problems that might come up. So feel free to always contact us if you'd like help with anything. That's what we're here for. Okay, PTAs are 501c3 nonprofit organizations. PTAs are legally classified as public charities. That means you're eligible to receive tax-deductible contributions. You're generally exempt from paying federal and state taxes. There are some exceptions, but most PTAs don't have any problem with that. You must file federal and state tax returns annually. That is required to stay in good standing and remain as a PTA. Also, you can't use PTA funds to benefit a private person, such as individual officers on your board, that kind of thing. The IRS says that 501c3 organizations cannot endorse a commercial entity or promote a commercial product. You can thank businesses who have donated to you or sponsored something, that kind of thing. So it's the way you use your words, in that you cannot tell people to go shop at a certain store, but you can publicly thank them for their support of your PTA. You also cannot endorse or promote a candidate for office. Even a candidate that's for a nonpartisan office, you can support or oppose issues, but not people, if that's an easy way to remember it. The California State PTA has advocates, and we do get involved in legislation and things, in promoting legislation like that, but those are issues, those aren't people. Now, as a board, everyone on the board has a fiduciary responsibility. And this is a legally defined responsibility to uphold the trust placed in the officers. So that means that you and your board must act in good faith, understanding, and abiding by the bylaws of the organization. So you can't set the bylaws aside and just ignore them. You have to act with the care an ordinary, prudent person would exercise under similar circumstances, and in a manner the individual reasonably believes to be in the best interests of the organization. The board is responsible for protecting the assets of the PTA. That means each officer, not just the president, not just the treasurer, but each officer is obligated to ensure compliance with all laws. You're obligated to be sure that the assets are used to serve the interests and needs of beneficiaries, which in our case is the students, the children. Continuity of the organization for years into the future, because how you act now will influence people wanting to join your PTA and support your PTA, and for your PTA to exist into the future. And you're obligated to ensure the organization remains transparent. PTA is not a secret society operating at the school. We want to be as open and transparent as we can to our members and to the school. And you want to be sure you're carrying out the purpose that you've been given. So talking about, if you're obligated to protect the assets of the PTA, what are they? Most of us, the first thing we think of is money. And that's true. So every board member, not just the treasurer, needs to be sure that all the money is reported on. And you're following the financial procedures for handling money found in the toolkit, and we'll talk about some of those today. Property, anything purchased with PTA funds and that has not been gifted to the school is considered PTA property. Could be a case of paper, it could be any kind of office supplies, carnival games or equipment, storage items, storage tubs, 5-gallon beverage containers, computers, paper goods, any of that. Inventory, if the PTA ends up sponsoring sale of spiritware and things, you're responsible for being sure that the inventory is safe, that it doesn't just walk off or disappear. Also, that includes leftover gift wrap or cookie dough or paper script, any of those kinds of things. Volunteers, that's the most important asset of the PTA. Anytime someone volunteers, try to find a job for everyone. If someone volunteers and then you don't take them up on it, you never call them back, they're probably never going to volunteer again. So if you don't need them, if they're volunteering for a particular activity and you're already swamped with volunteers for that, thank them for volunteering, let them know the situation, but say, but we could really use your help and suggest some other activities that they could help with. That way they'll know that they're appreciated. PTA is an ongoing concern. The board makes decisions that will protect the future of your PTA. So you can't, you're obligated not to encumber future boards as well. So you can't sign contracts for next year. You can only sign contracts or obligations for the year in which you are in office. So each board only makes decisions directly affecting their term of office. And the reputation of your PTA. Everything centers on the reputation of your PTA. So guard it as a very important asset for your PTA. Because if your PTA doesn't continue with a good reputation, people aren't going to want to join. They aren't going to want to support fundraisers. They aren't going to want to be involved. So that's important. Ways to ensure fiduciary responsibility. This is nonprofit corporation law. You have a duty of care, so board members should fulfill their roles to the best of their ability. That means you have to participate, you have to communicate, you have to come to meetings. You have the duty of loyalty. All activities should be done in the best interest of the organization, not in the best interest of an individual. And you have the duty of obedience. The board should follow organizational rules as defined in your governance document or bylaws. And you also have to follow PTA policies and procedures that the California State PTA lays out for us. PTA tools. Well, the first one is your PTA bylaws. Second is the toolkit, which the California State PTA provides. You can get a print copy of it, but it's online, updated. It's on the California State PTA website, which we'll talk about, and it's updated twice a year. So you can look up information on all topics in that toolkit. Another tool is the insurance guide, and that is updated every year. So you want to be sure that you have the current one, which is 2024. And again, you can get that on the State PTA website. Another important tool is the Tax Filing Support Center, because most people kind of panic when they hear, I have to file tax returns. And the State PTA makes it very, very easy. And they walk you through it on the Tax Filing Support Center. And you don't have to look up how to log in to file online with the IRS or the State Franchise Tax Board. You can file directly from the State PTA's website through the Tax Filing Support Center. And another important tool is the Third District PTA calendar, because that provides important deadline dates. It tells you the dates when we're offering training. And it's reminders for when you have to file your tax returns, or when you need to send us copies of certain things, or when you have to pay your insurance premium annually. So that's something that you want to look at every single year. And we post a copy of our third district calendar on our third district website, so you can always access it there. PTA websites with great resources. Well, the National PTA, and you can see the website, capta.org, has wonderful resources for membership drives, for all kinds of things. California State PTA has two. It has the regular website, which is capta.org, and then it has a special website set up for PTA leaders. And that is leaders.capta.org. And some things are on both websites, but some things are not, such as the Tax Filing Center is only on the special website for PTA leaders. To access the special website for PTA leaders, you need to register. Easy. You need your email. You need to, so you go to that website and it'll ask you to log in or to register. And then you click on the register if you need to, and you provide your email. You create your own password. You need to know that you're part of District 3, and you need to know your California identification number or unit number, and that's on the cover of your bylaws in the top right-hand corner. So I would recommend that every member of your board register on the leaders website also, so that you can always have access to both websites and you can search them both for whatever information or help you might be looking for. And then there's the third district website, which is the numeral 3rdpta.org. And that's where Tom will be posting, hopefully posting this training video, and we have some other training videos for individual positions posted there. You can find forms there. You can see who the PTA, third district PTA officers are, that kind of thing. Your PTA's bylaws. You need to review them every year. If they're the rules for how your PTA is set up, how do you know what they are if you don't look at them? So at the beginning of each year, any new board should go through the bylaws and kind of see what's in them. You need to update them every 5 years. Now, the IRS requires that organizations' bylaws be current. But because you are under the umbrella of the California State PTA, the IRS says that the California State PTA can determine what is current. And so the California State PTA has set the rule of 5 years. Now, you can always update them anytime you want, as long as you go through the appropriate procedure. So maybe as you get started and maybe next year you say, oh, we didn't know it was going to work this way. Maybe we need to change this. And so there is a procedure for changing things, because the process is you have to work with the third district parliamentarian, and then they go through to the state PTA parliamentarian for review and signature, and then they come back, and then your membership votes to adopt the updated bylaws. So you can wait the 5 years, you can update every year, or maybe in 2 or 3 years you look at them. I recommend doing it at least every 2 or 3 years, because the California State PTA updates the template for it. And certain things that the state PTA votes on are effective immediately. How are you going to know what they are if you have bylaws that don't show them? So you may want to update that. Yes, Kat.
So we just have a question over here. Being that we
are a little louder.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Being that we are a year-round school, we're reviewing the bylaws we have in front of us, but we're just wondering at what point in the year we'll be expected to review those. Given that we are a year-round school, would that be when we vote for officers in March, or when they take up their duties in July?
It could be either, but it must be at least when they take up their duties. That's the first thing you do when you take up your duties in July. But I strongly encourage that after the election, the board elect, first thing they can do, because they can start planning and things, well, look at those bylaws.
Okay, and to be clear, when we officially started this PTA, which wasn't official until 2024, we elected our officers for the first term to not need an election this March, correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I
Just
had a question too.
one more question before we move on.
Hey, so I just want to confirm, you're saying we should review it every year, but it doesn't have to be updated every year. It can be updated every 5 years?
Yes, but she recommends updating it every 2 to 3 years because templates and other things update during that process.
Okay, but according to the paperwork.
But the requirement.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sue.
Okay. And you can see this is where you can update using the e-bylaws program makes it the easiest. Unfortunately, the bilingual bylaws that you have right now are not part of the e-bylaws program. So the state PTA has Fillable, which is what we used when we organized your PTA. And the third district parliamentarian, in any particular year that you decide you want to update your bylaws, the third district parliamentarian will have a copy of that fillable template for the bilingual bylaws that they can email to you to work with. Okay? Bylaws are your PTA's GPS. They have your association name. Now you can call your PTA, you can abbreviate the name of your PTA using initials or just the last name, whatever you choose. But you need to know what your legal name is because you have to use your legal association name when you file your tax returns for sure, when you open your bank account, when you sign contracts and things like that, you're using your full legal name. Now, if you're doing a fundraiser and you're asking parents to write a check or something like that to the PTA, you need to check with your bank what they will accept for depositing of checks, whether they will accept initials of your PTA or whether they want the full legal name. So those are things please do check out. The bylaws have all of your ID numbers. They have your national PTA ID number, they have your state PTA ID number, and they have your tax filing ID number. So they have your EIN with the IRS. They will have, right now, you don't have it yet, they will have the entity number for your PTA with the state franchise tax board. And they will have the charitable trust number assigned to your PTA. Now, third district has sent in the application for your CT number. We filed that on your behalf. It typically takes up to 3 months. I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm assuming you have not received that yet.
You're correct.
Okay, that's fine. Just let us know when you do receive it, because third district needs to know your charitable trust number. The bylaws say what your quorums are. That's the minimum number of people that have to be present at an executive board meeting for you to do legal business, and the minimum number of members that have to be present at an association or general meeting in order to do official business. And in your case, your bylaws say that your quorum for board meetings is 5 and your quorum for association meetings is 11. And the quorums are based on the number of elected and appointed officers you have. So in the future, if you decide you want more officers, like maybe you decide you want multiple vice presidents, that's going to increase the number of officers, which would increase your quorum, just so you're aware of that fact. The bylaws list the officers who are elected to your PTA. The bylaws talk about the nominating committee and when it's elected and how many people serve on it and when the elections are. In your case, the elections are scheduled for March. And as you said, Kat, you won't be electing this year because you're brand new. But you will be planning on for next year. The standing rules are much easier to change. You'll see at the very end of them, it tells you what the process is. It lists the VPs if you have more than one and any specific duties assigned to them. It lists when the meeting dates are for association and board meetings. It lists how much the board can spend on unbudgeted expenditures without having them pre-approved by the association. And in your case, I believe it was $1,000 that was set in. Doesn't mean you have to spend that, but it allows the board to do that. It says who your check signers are, and you have 4 check signer options. Anytime you write checks, though, you have to have, regardless of what the bank says, PTA requires that 2 individuals sign those checks. About standing committees. Standing committees are committees that are long. Right now, I don't believe there's any standing committees listed in your bylaws because you were waiting to find out what you might want. Some PTAs also add in their standing rules any ad hoc or special committees that they typically have each year. You might have a chairperson for a fall festival. That doesn't operate all year. That's a special committee. But you might want to list what those special committees are, and that's your choice to add that to your standing rules if you want to. Another thing that's important, a tool, is your insurance guide. The insurance is on a calendar year. We're in 2024 right now. And so you're looking at the 2024 insurance guide. If you don't have that, you can go to the state PTA website and look for it and then download it. It's on my computer too, so I can send it to you if you email me if you need it too. And some of the additional information just for your own information is some of the limits that it will talk about. Now, one of the things I do need to tell you is that Tom and I and Cheryl, all of those at 3rd District, are not insurance agents. We cannot answer specific questions about insurance. All we can do is tell you to go to the insurance company. You can call the 800 number. You can use the email for it and ask your question. I recommend personally that you email because that way you get an answer back and you have the answer in writing. If you have that you can share with other board members and things like that. Thinking about that insurance. You should have a certificate of insurance from the insurance company. It's typically emailed to the president every year. And you should have received that, Kat. Did you get it in the mail or did you get it emailed to you?
I believe we got that in the mail.
Okay, good, good. And, once you pay your insurance premium next year for 2025, you'll end up getting an insurance certificate. And the school district may want a copy of that. Sometimes when you're doing things, you have to be sure that you can prove that you do have insurance coverage. Okay, the toolkit is an extremely valuable tool that you can use. It's put out by the California State PTA, and it provides guidance and instructions on running your PTA, all kinds of help with finance, membership, programs, advocacy, forms, that kind of thing. So please consult that all the time. It also has detailed job descriptions in detail, not simple ones, but very detailed ones. And it has some job descriptions for committee chairs and things like that too. So you might want to just browse through and look and see what's there for that. Okay, let's go through and talk about individually some of the duties of each officer. We wanted all of you to hear this so you have realistic expectations of each other and you know what you all should be doing. So the president's duties is to oversee and coordinate the work of the executive board. It's not to do everything. The president presides over executive board and association meetings. They approve all materials prior to distribution. And typically, if you're distributing flyers, handouts, whatever, you need to go to the principal and have them okayed by the principal before you send them out. The president makes chairperson and committee member appointments. They're ratified by the executive board. The president serves ex officio as a member of all committees. except the nominating committee. That's the only one that the president can't attend meetings or serve on. The president signs payment authorizations, which we'll talk about later. They also are one of the check signers on the bank account. The president ensures that reports and taxes are completed by the deadline, which the deadline for tax returns is filing by November 15th. Other reports are due at various times that you'll see on our calendar. And it's important that you ensure that copies are emailed to 3rd District, and we upload them into the database. The president is the official contact and representative of the PTA. You meet with the school principal regularly. You can decide whether it's monthly or what works, but that's how you work together, and that the PTA supports the school and the school supports the PTA in any activities that you might want to do. The president should attend 3rd District Association meetings or send a representative, but all of the board members are welcome at our 3rd District Association meetings. So we do invite all of you. The president should ensure volunteer hours are collected and reported to 3rd District. And we will talk about those in detail a little more. We said that the president signs contracts. All contracts must be approved by the association before signing. All contracts have to be signed by 2 elected officers, and the president must be one of the 2 signers. Typically, it's the president and the treasurer, but it doesn't have to be. It could be a vice president signing it. It is not the principal, because it must be an elected PTA officer. And you can see on your screen how you sign contracts. You're not just signing your name. You're signing the name of your PTA by and your name, comma, president and the year. Because you're not personally responsible for it. You're signing it representing the office that you hold. Any questions about that? Because that's an important thing, and it's a mistake that PTA officers make because they don't know that they shouldn't just be signing their own personal name without the other information. Vice president duties. Now, these are the basics. They're a primary aid to the PTA president. If they can run the meeting if the president can't be there, and they help the president in whatever way is needed. They may be asked by the PTA president to oversee committees or perform specific tasks as needed. And they can sign the checks if needed, as be one of the 2 check signers. Now, as you go along, you may decide other duties that specifically you want to assign to a vice president. And in the standing rules, you can add a standing rule that would describe those additional duties. So that's a way to keep a record of that sort of thing. Treasurer. The treasurer maintains the permanent records to track school PTA funds and financial transactions. And the treasurer can use, they can create their own Excel spreadsheet. They can use QuickBooks or other financial software, financial accounting software, or you can choose to use PTEZ. PTEZ is a program designed for PTAs to use. It has 2 parts, 2 halves. One part is free, and that's when we upload you keep track of your officers and things like that. But the other part is a pay, and you can, the treasurer can keep the books using that, where the treasurer has access to it, but the rest of the board, you can determine who can see it. So they can visually see the books, they just can't handle them. And I believe you get 30 to 45 days on that to try it, to see if you like it. My experience has been you either like it or you hate it. So if you want to look at it and try it out, feel free. And then you can just not enroll in it on a permanent basis if you decide you don't want it. The treasurer helps prepare the PTA budget. tracks income and expenses according to the budget, and helps prepare budget revisions. You pay the PTA bills as authorized by the board or the association, which means basically writing the checks, although some things can be paid by ACH payments. Again, there's some paperwork involved with that, and two of the officers have to sign that paperwork, because if it's an electronic payment, you still have to have two officers approving it. The treasurer is responsible for preparing treasurer's reports for every board, written treasurer's reports for every board and association meeting, and an annual financial report. And also to ensure that taxes and reports required by the PTA bylaws, the insurance, and federal and state governments are completed and submitted by the due dates. Typically, the treasurer files the tax returns, but there is nothing wrong with saying, well, I'm not real comfortable doing that, and finding somebody else who's willing to help with file those tax returns. So don't ignore filing. Speak up if you would like help or would like somebody else to take care of it. That's why the word ensure that it happens, but doesn't necessarily mean you absolutely have to do it yourself. Now you notice here, it doesn't say anything. Typically, now that you have a financial secretary for your PTA, it's sort of a division of a treasurer's duties, where the treasurer pays the bills and the financial secretary counts the money and makes the deposits and keeps track of that. So that's how the breakup of that works. And there's a detailed description in the back of the toolkit for financial secretaries, so you can see how that works.
Yeah. Kat has her hand raised.
Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead, Kat.
I wanted to go back to the issue. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Just going back to the issue of the taxes for a moment, you said that we could seek out additional help. Would that include professional help if we wanted to, take the PTA's tax box to H&R?
Yes. Well, yes, you can go to a professional to file your tax returns. The key point is you have to be sure that that professional is familiar with filing tax returns for nonprofits. We have had the horrible experience of a PTA who went to a relatively inexperienced tax preparing company, and they weren't familiar with filing for nonprofits, and so they didn't file all of the returns that needed to be filed and that sort of thing. So you need to ask that question of any professional. You also can go to a professional. You may have parents at your school that are professionals. When you ask them if they're willing to help with file your tax returns, you need to clarify, are you asking them as a volunteer or are you paying them? Because we've had some PTAs get rude surprises when a parent said, oh, I'll help, I'll do it. And then they billed the PTA, and when the PTA complained, they said, well, this is by profession, so of course I didn't volunteer to do this for free. So you need to clarify that, okay? But yes, if your PTA has the money to pay for it, go for it. Another thing is, if professionals prepare your tax returns, they are not filing them for you. They are preparing them and then returning them to you for the president or the treasurer to sign and file. So remember that you have to sign if your gross income is more than $50,000 and you're having to file the longer written form, that requires an officer's signature on it. If your gross income is less than $50,000, you're going to be able to file online the 990N. It takes less than 10 minutes. It's real easy. You don't even need a professional to do it. So there's the difference in what your gross income of your PTA is for whether you want to find a professional. The state PTA encourages you, if your gross income is more than $50,000, by all means, go for finding a professional who's familiar with filing for nonprofits to complete your tax returns. Okay? Secretary's duties. Now, you have two kinds of secretaries. A recording secretary takes minutes of board and association meetings. And if the recording secretary is absent from the meeting, then logically, the corresponding secretary would probably be the logical person for the president to ask to act as the recording secretary pro tem and take the minutes of the meetings. The recording secretary co-signs formal papers with the president, such as authorizations for payment, which we'll talk about, resolutions and formal letters, and bylaws revisions after they're adopted by the association. You saw when you were organized that your president and your secretary, which is the recording secretary, sign those bylaws. Now, your recording secretary, since you have one, is going to handle PTA correspondence as directed by the president. So we're kind of splitting up this job description of a secretary into the two types of secretaries in your circumstances. Now, your recording secretary maintains and preserves PTA records and important documents to pass on to the next secretary at the end of the term. So that's very important to do. And if you do not have an elected or appointed historian to keep track of volunteer hours, then the recording secretary needs to track and record those volunteer hours. And again, that's an important issue that we'll talk about. Historian's duties. Now, a historian could be elected, which I don't believe you have an elected one, or you can, as the president, you can appoint somebody as a historian. That's just like a chairperson job. But if you have them as an appointed position, they could collect the volunteer hours for all PTA meetings, sponsored events, and activities. And they could create and use a tally sheet to do this with. They could submit the annual historian report to 3rd District. The due date is May 15th. The most important job of the historian is to collect those volunteer hours. Additionally, though, they could capture and assemble and preserve a record of activities and achievements of the PTA each year. It's really neat if you have a written report of all the activities the PTA did during the year to keep as part of your PTA records. And the historian may set up a display at school to highlight PTA activities and promote PTA so that parents and school staff see it. If you had an elected historian and you chose them as a check signer, they could be a backup check signer. In your case, they are not an authorized check signer. Okay, we need to follow financial procedures. And everybody is responsible for seeing that these procedures are followed, not just the financial officers. You need to ensure that money is always counted in a secure location by at least 2 adults who are not related by blood, marriage, or place of residence. Money must always be counted before it's taken from the original site where it was obtained. So you don't take it home to count. It needs to be counted. If you're doing a fundraiser and the money's being turned in at the school, then the money needs to be counted at the school. And if you're securing it in the school safe with the permission of the principal, it should always be counted before it is placed in the safe too. And you're going to use a cash verification form when counting money. And if the treasurer is not one of the people counting the money, you're going to provide the treasurer with a copy. Usually the people that count the money are going to sign. There are going to be 2 signatures on that cash verification form. And that's important. Now, a suggestion that I have is that you have a binder in the school office. You make a copy of the cash verification forms and 3-hole punch them and place them in that binder so that there's always a record at the school of money that has been counted and everything. It's a security measure. It helps keep people honest, basically, because they know that there is a copy there in the school office. And sometimes it's important to be able to see at any time that you can go to that binder as officers or the principal. You could go to that binder and look. How much money did we take in from last night's event? That kind of thing. You need to deposit the money promptly in a PTA, bank, or credit union account. PTA money never goes in a personal account. So that's important that you're going to be opening a PTA bank account or credit union account for your PTA. You're going to use an authorization for payment form when you pay bills. The treasurer doesn't just write a check because somebody hands her receipts and say, I want reimbursed. There has to be an official authorization for payment form, and that we have some handouts that we'll post on our 3rd District website that has the cash verification form. It has a copy of the authorization for payment form. You also can find these forms on our website under the forms section at the top, across the top of the screen, or you can find them on the state PTA website. So it's easy to get the forms. There's no excuse not to use them. Also, you have to pay all bills by check, or some of them could be an ACH payment or that kind of thing, but never in cash. And it has to be voted on that you're going to pay those bills. Have 2 signatures on the checks, and the signers on your account are listed in your bylaws. You need to review when you open your bank account, the bank statement needs to be mailed to the school address, because that's the address of your business. I encourage you to also be able to access it online so that you can see the bank statement and things like that. But the bank statement should be mailed to the school. And a non-check signer needs to be appointed to review the bank statement each month. That's a requirement that our insurance company, it wants. And therefore the state PTA says it's a financial procedure that we shall follow. You need to reconcile the bank statement monthly. Don't put it off. Check. Banks make mistakes. People make mistakes. Check it out. And it's a good way to see if you don't see deposits that should be there. You can look into it. Provide a written treasurer's report at all executive board and association meetings. That's the first red flag if there's no written financial report presented at board meetings and association meetings. Treasurers can do it ahead of time, email it to the president to present if they can't be at the meeting, but there's no excuse for not having a written financial report at all meetings. The secretary needs to record approval or ratification of all payments into the minutes. And you need to conduct a financial records review. Most of us know that as an audit, but do the financial records review twice a year, mid-year and the end of the year, or upon resignation of a check signing officer. Okay, so basically, all of you need to look at the minutes and see that those things are recorded in them. You need to see if there's a financial report at the meetings. So everybody's responsible for being sure that your PTA is following those financial procedures. Now, PTA planning, there's 5 steps. You can see what they are here, and we're going to go through them individually. First one is board orientation. And as we talked about a few minutes ago, you can do that right after the new officers are elected, or you can do it in July when they actually officially take office. But the board is going to get together and you're going to set some ground rules for how you want to operate. Some of those ground rules might include that everybody agrees that they won't have side conversations at the meeting. So everybody isn't trying to talk at once. You need to go through the bylaws, review those bylaws so everybody's aware of the information that's in them. You need to glance at the insurance guide. Anytime you're doing things, you want to be sure that that particular activity is covered. And in that insurance guide, there are red light items that there is no insurance coverage for. And if you conduct them, you're individually liable. There are yellow light items that, yes, there's coverage, but it's not automatic. Something else is required. It might be something like a signed parent permission slip if you're sponsoring a skate night for the students, things like that. And there are items that have a green light with them, and that means if you see an item that you want to do and it has the green light with it, then you can automatically, you have full insurance coverage for that. Now, hopefully, you are beginning to put together a procedure book for each of your positions. So the president would have one, the vice president would have one, the secretary would, each secretary would have one, the financial officers would have one. And in that procedure book, you might want to put any of the handouts that you download for after this training, the forms and things that you're going to use. And then that procedure book is passed on to the officers that are elected to follow you. So you don't keep it, you pass it on. Now, is there a rule that it has to be in writing in a binder? No, you can save it on a thumb drive and hand it over. But keep in mind, we have had PTAs complain of issues with corrupted thumb drives when they got it, and so they couldn't see anything. So you might want to even consider doing both methods to be sure, or putting things on your Google Drive and setting that up and that kind of thing. The what? You're going to set goals and programs. The IRS says we're not a fundraising organization, but you can fundraise all you want to implement your program. Well, how do you decide what your program is going to be? You need to set some goals, and that'll show on the next screen. You need to determine, well, what are the needs of our school community? You might want to use questionnaires or surveys to find out, to get input from parents of what they, and staff, of what they would like the PTA to do. And then you're going to determine, okay, what programs would we like to do that the membership is going to vote that we can carry out. You're going to determine your own PTA calendar for when these activities and the timelines and things of when these activities are going to happen. Ideas for goals. The goals should be basic, simple goals, general goals. So here are some ideas, because we always get asked that question. You need to decide 2 to 5 goals, not any more, or you're going to be overwhelmed. And simple ones, because you can do lots of activities under them. For example, the enrich the school curriculum, and some ideas, the PTA could be paying for field trips, for assemblies, for things like that. Or you can see improve the school environment. You could be purchasing playground equipment, or benches, or shade structures, or all kinds of things. So you see the idea of these suggestions for goals are very general, but you need to decide them for yourself, and they only apply for the current period that you are in office, and then the next people will determine the goals, and then the membership votes on these goals and things. The how, the budget. The budget is a plan. It's not authorization to spend the money. The treasurer-elect before June 30th, or the treasurer after July 1 chairs the budget committee. And logically, in your case, because you have a financial secretary, they would be an automatic person to serve on that committee too. The rest of the board submits items, ideas to whoever is on that committee. And the president is going to be appointing people to that budget committee. The budget, you're going to estimate what the expenses are going to be, and then estimate the income that you're going to get, what kinds of fundraising activities that you're going to need to do to raise the income. And your income and your expenses would equal each other on that budget. Now, the board-elect determines a preliminary budget. So the preliminary budget, if your elections were in March, and then the board-elect would meet and determine that budget, because some things have to be spent over the summer before the first association meeting at the beginning of the school year, or after July 1, in your case, as a year-round school. So they would determine a preliminary budget. They would bring it to the current association and get it approved, so that funds could be spent during the summer. And it's usually not a complete budget. It's just a few items on it for approval. The complete budget is approved at the first association meeting after July 1. And your standing rules list that your first association meeting is in August. So that's when you would be approving your budget. Now, remember I said that the budget is just a plan. It's not authorization to spend the money. So as activities come along, the membership is going to vote to release the funds for that activity. So the PTA programs that you decide to do, events, membership plan, fundraising plan, and budget must be approved by the association at the first meeting of the year and before any plans are implemented. So the membership has to approve of what you are planning to do. The who, well, the membership, the people are the who of your PTA. And you're going to make membership goals. Again, look at the National PTA website and the State PTA website for all kinds of ideas regarding membership. Membership, the original membership drive typically takes place at the beginning of the school year, but it's really a year-long campaign, which fits in ideally with you guys because you're a year-round school. That you develop plans for how you're going to conduct your membership drive and how people are going to join. People can join your PTA using the traditional white envelopes, and they can pay by cash or check. But you can also set up your PTA on Totem, which is a program designed to help PTAs have their members join electronically. And I would really encourage you to make both methods available so that people can join the easiest way for them. And it is, admittedly, it's much easier for people to join on electronically than it is to find the envelope, get the right amount of money in it, and get it back to school with their child at the correct time. Now, if the people join electronically with Totem, there is a $1 charge for the convenience of that you need to be aware of. But most people are happy to pay that just to be able to do it easily. And Totem makes it easy for relatives, grandparents, and things to join your PTA too. They don't have to actually physically live in the neighborhood, because joining a PTA, becoming a member is showing the basic level of support for a PTA. It doesn't mean a commitment that they have to do something. So if you send out flyers inviting people to join your PTA, make sure that they understand that, because sometimes people won't join a PTA because they think that commits them to having to do something and they don't have the time for it. So you just want them, first of all, we hope they would get involved in things, but if nothing else, show their support of the PTA by joining. And Third District can help you get involved with Totem, set up on Totem if you need that help. I should say on the membership too, that typically you need to be sure that parents understand that it doesn't matter how many kids they have at school. It's the adults that are joining. And so it's not the first grader, the second grader, the third grader, that kind of thing. So regardless if they have 2 kids or 6 kids, it's one person, one membership, and it's the adult that's joining your PTA. The do, family engagement and fundraising. Fundraising is not a purpose of the PTA. We do the fundraising in order to be able to implement our program. So you raise the money to finance those programs and projects. You don't raise the money and then decide, oh, we've just raised $20,000. How do we want to spend it? That's the wrong order. You decide what you want the money for, and then you raise the money. And you always follow the 3-to-1 rule. For every fundraising activity, you need to have at least 3 non-fundraising activities of any size. Because we're not doing just fundraisers all the time. We're doing other things. You could do family nights. Some of those other activities could be a family night, where it could be a math night, an arts night, a family reading night, where people do not have to pay to attend, but families can come, have a good time, learn, whatever. So I know if you want to get a movie license, you can have a family movie night where families could attend free of charge. That would qualify as one of those 3 non-fundraising activities per fundraising activities. So that's important to remember, that 3-to-1 rule. Managing your PTA. Yes, Kat. Go ahead, Kat.
You caught our attention with the movie license.
Yes.
Do we need a movie license to show movies that we own, or only movies that we stream, or?
Everything. The only people who can show movies for free are teachers that are showing them commercial movies. And they are teachers that are showing them in a classroom instruction environment. They are allowed to show commercially produced movies of any type. But if you want to show them for at noon on a rainy day for kids' entertainment or as a classroom reward, legally, you're violating copyright law on any of movies, regardless of whether you as an individual have purchased it. When you purchased it for your own personal home viewing. You're not allowed.
We have a movie license at the school, guys. We're good.
Oh, good. Then that works. Very good. I'm glad to hear that. Then I don't have to be concerned.
No, we're covered.
Very good. Does that answer your question then, Kat? Okay. Part of now is team building. You need to empower and mentor for today and tomorrow. You're going to get burned out if you try to do everything year after year after year. So get other people involved so that they're learning how to do this. And it could be shadowing you, it could be helping you, whatever, each of your officer positions, so that you're preparing the team both for today, but also for tomorrow in future years. You need to recognize and appreciate different work styles. We all come to the table with different skill sets, different ways of doing things. So as a president, particularly, you need to appreciate that everybody on your board doesn't do everything the same way that you might do it. President should delegate early and often, not try to do it all yourself. And give a thank you and a shout out to volunteers, because everybody needs to feel appreciated when we do something to help out. So you can, in a school newsletter, on your website, whatever, but you can thank your volunteers for what they've done for the PTA. And you need to remember that You guys need to be the brand, be PTA and enjoy. And remember that each of you are not the team. It takes multiple people to be a team. So the president isn't the PTA by themselves. The treasurer isn't the PTA. It's all of you together that are the team. Okay, how do you manage your PTA? We have committee meetings, we have executive board meetings, and then we have association meetings. So what happens at each of those kinds of meetings? Well, committee meetings are open to the president as an ex officio member. They have a chairperson and they have committee members. A committee is typically not a committee of one. It's a committee of 2 or 3 or 5 or 6 members working together on a project or an activity for the planning and things. A committee meets as necessary. Your bylaws allow you to meet via Zoom, not a problem. The quorum for a committee meeting is the majority of the committee members. And remember, the president appoints the committee chair and the committee members, and they are ratified by the executive board and entered into the minutes. That's important. The committee has lengthy discussions, does a lot of preliminary work, and then they hammer out the details and recommend activities to the executive board. So the committee, they do all the planning and stuff, but they don't do the activity itself. They bring all their findings and their recommendations and things like that to the executive board. The executive board then votes on it, and it's taken to the association for approval to do those things. Executive board meetings, those are held monthly. They can be held more often than that if you have an activity. But you need, as a president, you need to give reasonable notice about an executive board meeting. Don't try to call an executive board meeting that day, because a lot of people have other plans. They can't get away, they're working, whatever. So give reasonable notice, typically 2 or 3 days notice at least. Executive board meetings are open to the officers, to standing committee chairs, to teacher representatives and the principal or the principal's designated representative. Guests can be granted a courtesy seat by the president to share information. Guests do not vote and should leave the meeting after sharing, and there's a reason for that. If you invite people there as guests and they hear all the discussion, you can't be as open as you'd like to be, but also that guest may leave the meeting and talk to other people about what they heard. So they have broken the confidentiality of what's discussed in board meetings, and who they shared that information with may expect that to happen, and maybe at the next board meeting you changed your mind or you varied the decision or something like that. So if you have guests at meetings because they want to share a concern, or it's a fundraising company that wants to have their representative present information, have them at the beginning of the board meeting, and then they can share their concern or their information and then invite them to leave. Also, it's uncomfortable often to vote on something if that guest is sitting in the room staring at you. You can talk more freely about doing a fundraiser with a particular company if their representative is not sitting in the room waiting for your answer. So you ask them to leave, and the president just tells them, thank you for sharing, and I'll get back to you tomorrow, or I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Decisions at the board meetings are debated and agreed upon. It's majority rule. We don't always agree on the decision, but it is majority rule. And so you need to be careful as board members that you don't badmouth the board or other board members because you didn't like the majority decision. The executive board fills vacancies after an election. So if there's a vacancy, the bylaws state that the executive board fills that vacancy. You don't have to go back to an association or general membership meeting. The executive board appoints the chairs, and it's typically It's primarily the president who appoints it, and then the board appointment. The executive board reviews the budget and then moves it to the association for adoption. The executive board reviews each auditor financial review, and then they move it to the audit to the association for adoption. The board reviews the bylaws at the beginning of the year, and the board plans speakers and programs for association meetings and things like that. Association or general meetings. They're open to all PTA members and guests, but only members vote. They meet as set in the standing rules of the bylaws, and your bylaws tell you that when you're meeting, and you need to post the agenda at least 10 days in advance, because California Nonprofit Corporation Law requires that members know the agenda items upon which they have the right to vote. And it's important that they know this ahead of time, because they might choose to stay away from the meeting, but they would have come if they'd known something was going to be voted on in specific. The association approves the calendar, the programs and fundraisers. They approve the budget. They vote on it releasing funds. So sometimes the board has to plan ahead of time, because your association meetings are not monthly. So you do have to plan ahead of time to have them release the funds for activities that are listed in the budget. And they ratify expenses. They adopt updated bylaws and standing rules. They vote on the nominating committee members 2 months prior to an election. And the election is held at an association or general meeting. Keep track of volunteer hours. Your volunteer hours are needed to maintain your tax-exempt status. They're also useful for grant applications. You can use a volunteer, and you can create your own, or we have a sample one you can use, a volunteer hour tally sheet. Record the time spent on anything PTA related, not just at meetings. So if you're on the telephone making PTA calls, or you're on your computer, or you're going to the store to buy things for a PTA activity, if the time that it takes you to drive to the school for a meeting, all of those things count as PTA hours. So keep track of them. And the recording of them is not as strict as a school who might be keeping track of daily attendance of a student. I always say it's your best guesstimate of the hours that you spent. You can write them down each of you can write them down on a personal calendar, that kind of thing. But it's your best guesstimate of it. And there is a historian report that you need to submit to 3rd District PTA each year in May. So that's important. Okay, checklist for a healthy PTA. We've talked about a lot of the financial reporting. Are there written reports presented? Are balances, receipts, and disbursements recorded in the minutes each month? Is each check approved or ratified and listed? Are reports presented at both the board meeting and association meeting? Is an annual financial report completed at the end of the fiscal year? And typically it can be done as soon as you get your June bank statement. Is the budget approved and actual revenues and expenditures compared at least quarterly? Because if you don't make a comparison, you don't know if you're sticking to your budget or if you're way over or under in certain categories. So at least quarterly, you need to compare those. Are all checks signed by 2 authorized signers? Are all the expenditures appropriately authorized using a authorization for payment form? Whoops. Let me see if I can go back. My twitchy finger. Or are the bank statements reviewed by a non-check signer? That's important too. Minutes. is an attendance record kept for all meetings. In your board meetings, the recording secretary can record the attendance as part of the minutes and just say present and a colon and the names of the people present. But at association meetings, you have a sign-in of your membership. Are minutes kept for all meetings? Do they record financial information? Are all the action items recorded? So the minutes are not going to be recording everything, what everybody says. It's the basic decisions that are made. Two ways to approve things. The minutes can be, you can vote if it's spending money or major projects, you need to do it a little more formally by the motion. One of the members says, I move that the PTA hold a carnival on the second Saturday in October. And is there a second? And discussion, and all approved say aye, opposed no, motion carries. And it's recorded in the minutes. That's important also if for some unexpected reason there's an insurance claim. The insurance company, the first thing they're going to ask for is a copy of the minutes that prove that this was a PTA approved activity, not just a school activity. So all of those things need to be recorded in the minutes. And then are your bylaws no older than, less than 5 years old? That's important. Financial records review. Most of us know that as an audit. Are the reviews conducted at least twice a year? And then if you change check signers, there needs to be an additional one done. And then you need to send copies of those records reviews to 3rd District. We put a copy in your file in the office, and then we upload it in the database. Leadership and inclusivity. Our new qualified candidates nominated for office each year. PTA officers can serve a second term if they are elected, but there's nothing automatic about it. The nominating committee should be looking for officers each time prior to an election and looking for a candidate best qualified for the office. And the individuals that are currently holding those offices let the nominating committee know if they're interested in serving another term, but there's nothing automatic about it. Does your leadership attend 3rd District PTA meetings and do you guys take advantage of training opportunities? Do your leaders communicate effectively with the members? This is not a small secret society running your PTA. We need to be as open and communicative as possible with the membership. Does your PTA make volunteers feel welcome and valued? And is the board familiar, and do you use 3rd District's calendar of events and deadlines so that you get things done in a timely manner? Volunteer hours tracking. Are the volunteer hours being recorded? Is the historian report filed by the deadline? So those are important things. And then here are some tools for our 3rd District website, our state PTA website, the way to get to e-bylaws, the leadership's website, how to get to Totem if you want to set up an account on Totem. If you need information about insurance, you can go to the state PTA website and find the insurance information. And you can find the toolkit and then the National PTA website. So basically, we're doing okay. I tried to charge ahead. Now, does anybody have any questions? You have my name and email address there and phone number. You also can contact the 3rd District PTA office, and the phone number is there. The email to the 3rd District office is simply office@3rdpta.org. And our office secretary, you can leave a message if the office secretary is not in, and she can refer you to the appropriate 3rd District board member who can answer your questions or help you. So you don't have to contact me. You can contact me. You can contact your mentor, Cheryl, eventually. You can contact any of the other third district board members directly to ask questions that are specific to things, like you might contact third district treasurer to ask some specific financial questions. So that's all open. Any questions? Boy, it's awfully silent. Okay. Did we lose everybody? Is everybody still here or did we lose some?
I'm still here. I had a quick
We're still
question.
here.
Sure.
We asked most of our questions during the meeting, which you were gracious enough to pause and answer for us. But we did all want to thank you so much for your time and, thank you for taking over, because we know that this, you're not generally our mentor, but we appreciate the support.
We appreciate shining a light on all this information. It really does help.
And the idea is that the information that you've learned that you share with those who come after you too.
Yeah.
And encourage those who come after you to come to training. Third District will, in April, will be doing via Zoom individual workshops, training workshops and things. And there'll be a president's workshop, a financial workshop, a secretary's workshop, a bylaws workshop. So you're always welcome to come to those too, if you desire.
Sue, I had a
Okay.
question. This is Sharon. I know that some of the districts have, they're active on Instagram and they have a lot of their events that they post on there. Is that something that the third district PTA does as well?
Yeah, we don't really have much of a social media presence. We're actually working with a couple of our executive board members to create more, but we do have a Facebook group out there. There's actually one that's called the PTA Idea Exchange that sometimes people post things on there. If you go to our third district website, underneath About Us, you can actually see all the PTAs that are in the third district, about around 148 of them. What I've done is I've encouraged PTAs to check out the social media accounts of other PTAs, especially ones that may be in their same school district or nearby, or ones that are similar. So if you're, a high school, you might check out the social media accounts of other PTAs that are high schools or, elementary. I think, Kat, did you happen to get a relatively recent email from me in the last week or two? That because I sent one out to all of our PTAs showing the PTAs that have gotten 100 members this year. And in that, I included links to those PTAs that have had 100 members. So we have a web page for each of our PTAs on our website. So if there's a PTA that you say, oh, I heard that PTA is doing great things, you could actually go to our website, click on their webpage, and it would show how to link to their to that particular PTA's webpage, their Facebook account, their Instagram account. So because our executive board at our third district is kind of thin, we don't have a whole lot of resources and haven't had a whole lot of resources to put into building our own social media account. So recently I've encouraged the units to connect with each other and connect with your peer sister PTAs in the area and coordinate with them or get ideas from them, share things. We've had PTAs that said, oh, I'm having a hard time finding somebody that would be the financial reviewer. And so one of the things I've suggested is, well, connect with a PTA that's nearby and say, hey, we have lots of volunteers. And if you're having an event, some of our volunteers can help at your event. In exchange, if your financial reviewer will help us with our financial review. So.
Thank you. I have, I have created an Instagram for our PT and I've been following other local schools as well as other districts. And I was trying to find the third district PTA so I could follow them as well and kind of share whatever updates they have onto our page or like share it with our team. And so we were all in the know. Well, thank you. And I'll keep an eye out for it to see when the third district PT does go on Instagram. I did have one more question.
Mhm.
In speaking to other people that I know that are in PTAs and whatnot, I wanted to kind of get guidance on Mr. Hadley joins our PTA meetings every weekend he's here. I wanted to know because we're trying to get more teachers engaged too. I know some PTs have like a teacher liaison or like someone from that. So is that someone in addition to Mr. Hadley? Or
Yes, yes. Part of your board is a teacher representative, and it doesn't technically have to be a teacher. It could be a librarian, a teacher's aide, or whatever. And some PTAs have just one teacher rep who volunteers to serve in that position. Others have a primary and teacher rep and an intermediate grade teacher rep. So they end up having two teacher reps that to share and serve on the PTA board, and that's fine too.
And I guess I wanted some guidance and I think other how do we set that up or how do we go about achieving that goal so that we have that relationship with
There are no rules that I can give you for obtaining a teacher rep. Basically, you're going to have to go out. Maybe the principal will invite you, president or a PTA representative, to a staff meeting as a guest right at the beginning, and then you leave, obviously. But you say, that we would like to, this is a PT teacher, PTA, and we would like to, our bylaws allow for a teacher rep to serve on the executive board. And we would like to invite someone or someones to volunteer to serve in this capacity. You might talk to the principal ahead of time. I know at the school where I worked for many years, the principal gave credit to teachers. They always had to sign up for a major project and a minor project. And they gave major credit that counted if you served on the PTA board. So we never had a problem getting teacher representatives, kind of thing. So you just look for volunteers. Sometimes the principal can help you by encouraging certain staff members to think about this and consider it. But that's kind of how it works. It's pretty loose and easygoing, and it's not necessarily the PTA president picking a teacher rep. You try to open it up and invite people, see who's interested. Obviously, you can't have 5 or 6 teacher reps on it if you've got that many people, but maybe they'd like to share in it a little.
Okay, no, a few of the teachers have come to the meeting. They've encouraged us to email them. I just wanted to get some clarity so that we're, being mindful of the emails and invitations we're sending, and we're not doing too little and not doing too much. So that's why I just wanted some clarity and guidance on that.
Okay, I'm losing you. I can barely hear you now.
She was asking for some guidance and thanking you for the guidance that you gave. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Because that's what we're here to help. Otherwise, if there's no other questions, thank you all again.
Question, Sue?
About the financial review, the twice a year financial reviews, who has to conduct those?
You have to find someone to do that. They do not serve on as an elected member of your board. You go out, what some PTAs do is they send out an announcement to their parent membership at the school saying, we're excited to have a PTA here. One of the financial procedures that we follow for transparency is to conduct a financial review of our PTA records twice a year. And is there anybody who is comfortable? Because we can provide them with a check sheet. There is a checklist that individual is going to be looking for, so they know what they're looking for. They don't have to be an accountant. It could be a parent, a teacher, or they could be a bookkeeper or an accountant, doesn't matter. But sometimes you will get a volunteer from your school community that way that says, oh, I can do that twice a year. They don't want to be on the hook weekly or monthly, but twice a year they don't mind doing it. So that's the first place to go to try to find somebody.
Sue? Is there a problem if they're related to one of the board members? For example, Corey's wife here is on the PTA. She's not a board member. Would she be considered somebody who could conduct that audit?
And the person who does that financial records review cannot be related by blood, marriage, or reside in the same household as any of the check signers. Otherwise, it's wide open. Okay?
Yes, thank you.
Now, some of the handouts that I'm hoping we'll post are that list of the items for that financial records review so that the person knows what they're looking for, and a copy of the report that they're going to fill out when they do it, and that sort of thing. That's part of the handouts too. If we were doing this in person, I'd be able to just hand you each a folder with all those in it, but I can't do that online, obviously. Okay, anything else you can think of?
There was a lot of information tonight, so this has been recorded. And, I expect to post the slides in the next day or two, and hopefully the recording will also be posted because, like I said, there was a lot of information, and that will allow you to go back and review and look, and if there are check things that you may not be clear on, to replay it.
And it'll give you ideas of what to go to the state website and look up and stuff that you want more information on it, because you could look up information on financial review and get a lot more detail and things like that. So any of the topics that we talked about, you'll find additional information in that toolkit and on the state PTA's, each of those websites. So we would encourage that. And if you're like I am, you're not going to remember some of this, and you're going to say, well, didn't she say something about that? But you're not going to remember exactly what it was. Well, then go to our 3rd District website and look for if you go to our website and across the top for training, and then scroll down and you'll find the recording of this, and right beside it will be handouts and things like that.
Yeah, and there's other recordings on our website too that are specific to like treasurer and president.
And there's a recording on tax filing that we do for tax filing season and things. Okay. Anything else you can think of? Well, we really appreciate that you stuck it out through the whole presentation and listened, and we're here tonight. But don't hesitate. There is no such thing as a dumb or a stupid question. There's only a question about something you don't know the answer to. And if you look at it that way, don't feel that you can't contact us anytime with questions. Email, text, phone calls, anything. They're all welcome. That's part of the support network that 3rd District provides to all of our units. Okay. Okay, well, thank you and good night.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate you all being here and getting all this information. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. All right, everybody have a good evening.
Okay.
Good night.
You too.
Good night.